Let's talk about Royal Caribbean, stock symbol RCL. This stock took an absolute beating today, down over 12% at one point in the day, and it managed to pare some of those losses, finishing 7.6% overall for the day. Now, still a lot of loss there, and it took a lot of traders by surprise, including myself. I had this on my watch list as a potential long play. It had as much volume as we've seen since October of 2023, so there was some panic selling involved here, and all the cruise line ships took a beating today as well. So what I want to do in this video is I want to go over it from a technical standpoint. Is this something that we should be looking to buy the dip on, or is this one that we should just go and say, hey, you know what? Take some time, figure your stuff out, and I'll come back and visit you in a couple of weeks. So that's what I want to do. I'll go through the technical analysis and see what we got going on here. Now, the whole reason for this stock dropping as much as it did is out of fear that they're going to be taxed now, because right now they essentially pay no U.S. taxes. They're incorporated out of Liberia, but they're headquartered in Miami, but they pretty much don't pay any taxes. So that's great. Anyways, let's look at the charts here and see what we have going on. So going into the day, I was looking at getting long on this play. I saw this wedge, and it looked really promising. Now, it doesn't look promising right now, but if you go ahead and take off that candle right there, it was a pretty promising trade setup. I was looking to get long if it got probably around that 265 area, but it gapped lower and it just completely fell apart in the early going, rendering it an invalid trade setup because it broke below the lower portion of this wedge pattern. Now, where it got interesting was this rising trend line right here. And so this rising trend line does offer up some good support. And even though it dipped below it from an intraday standpoint, it still managed to hold it into the close. And that's really what I'm most concerned about when it comes to trend lines and support levels, is where does the stock close at? In this case, it managed to close above this key support level that goes back to October of last year. So off of this level, pretty decent bounce. You also have some support underneath that. So let's say tomorrow the stock still hasn't settled in yet and it still continues to sell off. Then you're going to want to watch this support level at 225. I think that's in a pretty important level right there. You can see where it starts to fill the gap if it gets below that level. And if you're a bull, you don't want to see that. Now, as far as a bounce play on this one, this wedge pattern is pretty much done and over with. But prior to the breakdown and the test of this rising trend line, you did have a higher high that was established. And that means that it's a healthy trend that's still in place. And it hasn't invalidated this trend line yet. So the trend is still intact. In fact, you could even say it's a bit of a parallel channel there if you want to get a little bit more technical. There's a nice parallel channel that's in place right there. So one of the rules that I have when it comes to playing bounces, there's three things that have to happen. It has to test the trend line or the support level. It has to hold it, and then it has to bounce. The bounce is the key, because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just say, oh, it's testing, I'm going to go ahead and get long, and then it keeps dipping, and then they get just completely wiped out. I don't necessarily need to get long right here at the bounce level, or even like where it's trading at right now. What I want to be able to see is that it can actually bounce and hold that bounce. So tomorrow's going to be a key day for it. If it can start to build back some of those gains, maybe go 1 or 2% higher, then that gives you a little bit more confidence that this stock is looking to return back to its highs from the end of January. But if you start to see it, dip back below this trend line here, or if you see more headline risk that comes out or more clarification that negatively impacts the stock, then we're probably talking about a potential test at this 225 level. So really what I want to see is tomorrow is, how does the stock respond? How does it open up? How does investors respond? Do they look like that they're buying this on stronger or more than average volume levels? That's the kind of stuff. Those are the variables I'm looking for. Now, you also have this trend line. Now, this trend line was broken a while back, but as trend lines often do, they'll flatten out over time. And so we have this trend line flattening out as well. So ignore some of these other trend lines here. I know that the chart's getting a little bit messier, but this blue line, it got tested here in the beginning of January, came back down again in January and tested it. And then today, it dipped way below it. And the previous time it dipped below it as well. But what it did manage to do is either close at or above it. Here, in this case, it closed above the trend line. Here, it closed right on it. So once again, I want to be able to see it get a little bit of a bounce or a disconnect from that level and push back to the upside. And then finally, if things were to really fall apart on this stock, and that's always potential. I think we're in a market right now that has a lot of FOMO. It has a lot of misplaced assumptions about where this market's going into the future. And as a result, when stocks get so displaced, they set themselves up for massive, massive declines. Now, this would be like at the end of a bear market, which we haven't even started yet. So this is more speculative than anything, whereas this is dealing with the present. This is dealing with a potential future. Rising trend line going all the way back to mid 2022. It's been tested many times. And then here in about, October 2023, it got disconnected. It just started ripping higher, following the 200-day moving average with it, bouncing off the 200-day moving average. So what it would require is a significant pullback down to this 126 level. Again, I don't expect that to happen anytime soon. It would take a significant market decline on which all your stocks would be pretty much impacted by the sell-off. So that's just kind of big picture. Where's the ultimate trend line at? That would be its ultimate trend line here that we're looking at from a long-term perspective. This other stuff here, this is more of your short-term. And the purple and the blue lines are probably the most important levels going into tomorrow. This wedge, not that big of a deal anymore since it broke down below it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. And tell me down in the comments below, did you buy the RCL dip? What's your plans with it? I tell you, it's a good company. They're expanding quite a bit. I've been on RCL. I like them. I love eating the food on the ship. It's a fun experience. My wife and I love getting away with the family on one of them. But tell me down below, what is your opinion of the stock? Do you think it's going to recover here? Do you think this is just a short-term blip? Let me know. Thank you guys, and God bless.